From resorts to digitally led, how South Africa's Sun International builds a market-leading omnichannel gaming company of scale.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. For those who have not had the pleasure of being introduced, my name is Mercy Sharon, senior journalist at Sigma. And joining me on stage is a very special guest. If you don't already know who he is, I think you should be home. But let's get started. Okay. Now, our topic of discussion today is From Results to Digitally Led, how South Africa's Sun International has been able to build a market-leading omnichannel gaming company of scale. And as I previously mentioned, we have a very special guest joining me here on stage, and I would like to give him a minute to formally introduce himself before we get started.
So Ulrik Bengtsson, CEO of Sun International. So maybe start by saying welcome to our beautiful property, Grand West Hotel here in Cape Town. I hope you are having a wonderful time and continue to have a great time here over the next few days.
Fantastic. Now, for those who do not know, Ulrik has nearly 2 decades of high-profile experience in the entertainment and gaming industries. And it's been close to a year since you took over as Group CEO at Sun International. And it's safe to say you had plenty of experience working with other global jurisdictions as well. So with that sort of experience and extensive professional background, what trends in customer behavior in both South Africa and globally are shaping your approach to combining resort hospitality, casinos, and digital gaming platforms?
Well, obviously, I've been in this industry now for a long time, and I think maybe Marcy is being kind, not showing evidence of how long I've been in this industry, but it has changed a lot since sort of the 2000s, or late 2009, 8, 9, 10, where it sort of started to happen online, changed a lot, but some things remains the same. And it's actually quite fascinating when you move across countries. This is now the 5th country I work and live in, how many things that are actually the same. We tend to spend a lot of time focusing on what's different, but actually in terms of consumer behaviors and what the consumer actually wants, it's remarkably consistent across territories. For the online business, it's the same old speed, navigation, ease of use, that is important regardless of what jurisdiction you're in. And of course for the land-based business, it's creating those memorable moments that you can't create online, and try to really distinguish and use what we have in physical assets to actually create memorable moments.
Now, what can you say Africa's market can borrow from the European market and apply back to us so that it can be more successful and more implemented?
So, can you repeat that? Sorry.
What can we borrow from the European market to apply to South Africa's or African market in general?
What the difference is?
Yeah.
Of course, there's a few things that are fundamentally different here. One is, of course, that we, for the online business, are regulated on a provincial basis, not a national basis. That makes life sometimes a little bit difficult, and I know we have many of the regulators in the room here, and I think we all probably want an easier, more predictable regulation that we can sort of, with a bit more scale, manage and operate within. So whether that's national or more consistent provincial, I'm not really going to weigh into, but as a company to have predictability, stability, and simplicity in the regulation is just so important to generate that confidence to invest and continue to build your business. So that's sort of one thing that is very, very different from many other jurisdictions. And the other one is, of course, the sheer scale of the number of people that we have across the continent, arguably with lower average revenue, but the scale of this is, of course, incredible.
Great. And you've spoken about having the need for a balanced regulation system in South Africa, especially when it comes to the online gambling sector. What regulatory reforms do you believe should be prioritized to foster innovation while still ensuring consumer protection?
That's a very loaded question. I think it comes back to, listen, we know after all these years, and I think it was mentioned here, we are not building bridges, we are not sort of building factories, or we are in an industry that is sometimes slightly difficult for everyone to understand, and also, to be fair, to accept for some people. So we understand that we need to be regulated, but what the world has recognized over the last, God knows, 20, 30, 40 years, is that when you have this type of product that gambling is, the best way to handle that in a society is to have clear, robust, stable regulation, and the business being run by responsible listed companies that are held accountable not only by regulators but also by shareholders and governance structures. So this is the best way the world has figured out to navigate. All other options are worse, and then we're into illegal markets and offshore markets, so everything else is worse. So with that insight, the most important thing for us as an operator is exactly that, back to my previous point, clarity, robustness, and stability of regulation, so we know what is the framework we're going to operate in, and we can trust that that framework is going to be in place for a long time so we can invest.
Great. Now we're still on the topic of regulation. Sun International has been vocal about the recently proposed online gambling tax, and the National Treasury had allowed industry comments till the 27th of February, which was last week. So how would you explain how taxes such as this impact business models, and what a sustainable taxation framework should look like?
So we submitted a response, obviously, and we've been also vocal before in that. And having let this digest a little bit and reflect over that discussion paper that was a little bit like a nuclear bomb back last year, I think I've sort of changed my approach to it slightly, which is let's be positive and look at this as a outreach to have a dialogue. And I think, having spoken to many people around this, that's how I choose to see it. There is a willingness to have a dialogue on how to regulate and how to tax this industry for the long term. Maybe the paper was slightly clumsy in how it came out and how it lacked some data, but let's put that behind us, and now let's all be very constructive, all the provinces, all the operators, to help shape a future regulation that works for everyone.
Great. And after we are done with regulations, I want us to move to a topic I believe isn't talked about enough, especially with how fast Africa's industry is growing. We are constantly witnessing technological and digital advancements in the industry, and this means an omni-channel gaming company such as Sun International needs new skills and new talent. How can operators evolve their organizations and culture to support this kind of transformation?
Listen, one of the things that I was always told coming down here was it might be difficult to find talent. That is actually not my experience at all. We've been very successful at Sun to bring in some world-class talent within technology, products, even in our operations for our gaming, online land-based casino business and so forth. So there is talent. I think many companies and what I've seen even within organizations, the problem actually starts much earlier. It's that you don't know what you need. So if you don't know what you need, it's impossible to go out and find that talent. So putting in place a bit of clarity on what do you need, what types of capabilities needed to take this business forward over the next 3, 4, 5 years, that's the starting point. And sometimes companies are very confused, even managers are very confused around that. I'm not confused about what we need. I've been very clear on what the capabilities are and that is required for us to move forward.
Fantastic. Now, for those who are not aware, we are currently seated in one of Sun International's most successful casinos. And as I like to say, it's one of his many successful babies. So Sun International is known for its iconic land-based resorts and a growing digital betting arm. How do you ensure the physical and digital consumer experiences are seamlessly integrated to drive loyalty and customer value?
I think we start from the other end. Rather than focusing on how these are going to be seamlessly integrated, you need to start to focus on the product verticals in itself. So our casinos out there, which I all hope you're going to go visit, that has to be competitive in its own right. Has to have the best product, best operational procedures, best table staff, all the things that makes that floor a great experience. Then on the other, so we need to invest in that and make sure that that happens. On the other side, then you have the online business, which also has to be very successful on a standalone basis. So we need to invest in that, navigation, speed, product, et cetera, et cetera. Then when you have that, that's when you can start to think about, okay, how do we now allow the customer to, in a seamless way, choose where they want to be? I said in one of the interviews yesterday that we all use omnichannel products every day. We just don't call it omnichannel. We go to the grocery store to buy milk, and sometimes we order our groceries home. So we do that, and we want to have that flexibility. Same is true for us. So once we have standalone successful product, then we tie that together through loyalty programs, rewards, but also technology and seamlessness in sort of money management.
Great. And still on the topic of growth and revenue, I'd like us to take a trip down memory lane. And with me here is the second edition of Sigma's magazine. And I'm sure most of you cannot see, but Ulrik is on the cover of Sigma's edition 2 magazine, which came out in 2015. And other than the fact that he decided to go platinum blonde, you can clearly see he's not aged a day. Now,
I had hair.
Yes. Now, as we can see in the magazine, for those who will be able to find the digital copy online, back in 2014, you were CEO at Betsson's, and the company reported a 24% markup in revenue. And now here you are at Sun International, and the company recently reported a $10.3 million increase in revenue in its first half of 2025. Both these cases just prove increase in revenue is not a new concept for you. How and what kind of insights can you share on the levers that are driving digital growth, and how do you plan on scaling further?
So I think start with the first one on sort of revenue growth. For me, it's always been about revenue growth. It's about building businesses. If you can't evidence that you can grow your revenue, profits, where are they going to come from? You can always optimize later, but we'll be able to show that we can grow our top line, and that's true for many of the companies I've been in before. But it's also true for Sun International. Online business, of course, growing very fast, but that's easy. The market is growing fast, everything is growing. The hard thing is to grow the land-based casino business. How do we do that in what people might say is a declining market? That's the real challenge. But if you can do that, then you can really show that you have some control of your business and control of the operations. And at the end of the day, for me, it's all about product. To your second part of that question, how do we make that happen? You have to have world-class products wherever you decide to compete. Otherwise, there is no reason for your being. Like, if we cannot provide the best casino experience out there as Sun International, then what's the point of all of this? And same online. If we cannot provide a truly, genuinely world-class product, then why do we exist? So it always starts with the product to make sure that delivers everything we promise the customer.
Great. Speaking of success and vision, how are you working on defining the vision of becoming an omnichannel gaming leader? Because we've mentioned time and again that Sun International is an omnichannel gaming company. So what key strategies could you say are the strategic pillars underpinning that vision of being an omnichannel company?
We actually say digitally led, and I think that's the key is in being digitally led. And when we talk about being digitally led, sometimes people think that's all about our online business, but it's actually just as much for our land-based business to use technology to enable customers to digital devices to do many more things and to tie the business together with the online business. So technology is a really important part in Omnichannel, but the learning from the American casinos is also that loyalty and rewards is super important. And we have our MVG program, but in all honesty, that probably needs a bit more new energy, gone a bit sort of static over the years. So we think there's a real opportunity to revitalize that sort of loyalty program and properly tie that between our various types of products.
Fantastic. South Africa's market is growing at an exponential rate, from significant increase in user statistics to increase in revenue. The market's potential is proving to be limitless. And because of this, a large number of offshore operators are targeting South African consumers. And I believe this is a problem that is experienced in other African jurisdictions as well. How can operators respond in terms of strategy, partnerships, and technology to retain market share locally?
Yeah, it's not only a problem in African countries. I mean, this is a problem all over the world, and we have some nightmare examples across Europe where regulation really failed the local industry. Holland is one of them, even my home country, Sweden, is one of them. So, unfortunately, you always have to go back to regulation, and in this case, I sort of tend to divide regulation into two parts. Good regulation, which is making sure that all operators behave in a responsible way, giving customers the tools and control to stay in control of the gameplay, all the things that is hygiene and good stuff and we should all be doing and we should be innovating around. So that's good regulation. Then you have bad regulation, which is when regulators start to fiddle around with the product and the experience. So as you do that, you create large incentives for customers to find better product in the offshore market. And that's when you start to push out gameplay outside of your regulation. You lose your tax base, you lose control of customer protection, etc., etc. And we've seen many examples of that, and again, mention Holland as a prime example for when you fiddle around too much with the product, you really lose control of your regulation. So the most important thing to combat illegal markets is to have a balanced regulation where customer gets protected, governments get taxes, and companies has the ability to operate and create good products.
Great. And in the coming year, what new things can we expect from Sun International, especially since you are dealing with both land-based customers and also customers from the digital platform?
We have so many things planned. I think we have a list of 200 initiatives or something we're driving across the company, but more locally here, I think we can expect pretty soon a new reception at the hotel after the refurbishment of the Privé last year. We will see, coming into April, we'll see a lot of new product coming to our casino floor here, a lot of new machines, new tables. We can see improvement in the training of our staff and our operational procedures to be more efficient in everything we do here, particularly around the table games. For our online business, you're going to see major improvements in product, interface, navigation, speed over the next 6 to 9 months. So we have a full table.
Fantastic. And I'm sure there is plenty of notes that other operators here can take from Sun International. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. It's truly been an honor having you here on stage with me. And as for the audience, thank you for sitting through this session with us. I trust you've taken a few notes home with you today. And I wish each and every one of you a fantastic evening. Thank you
very much. Thank you.